Hi Rainbow families and boys and girls, I hope everyone is well and staying safe. I've decided to read a story for our school YouTube channel because last week a girl from my class had written the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, but she had made her own ending, and that reminded me of a story that I really enjoy. It's Little Red Reading Hood. Now this story is all about stories that you might know already, but it's about ending the stories any way that you please. So there might be a challenge at the end of this video, but first I'm going to read this story to you. Little Red Reading Hood loved reading books, always curled up inside crannies and nooks. She read in the bathroom, she read on the porch, she read late at night by the light of a torch. Flicking through pages, her little head bowed, dreaming up stories and laughing out loud. But one day her mother said, "What a to-do, Red? This old library book is long overdue. You must take it back to the library today, but listen, I've got something important to say. Don't ever stray from the path in the wood." "Yes, Mum," said Red, and she pulled up her hood. As Red skipped along, it was lovely and sunny, but suddenly Red felt a little bit funny. A wolf jumped in front of her. Gruffly he said, "Where are you taking that book, Little Red?" "The library," she answered, "to hand it back in." "Oh," said the wolf, and he started to grin. The wolf licked his lips, and he had a good hunch that Little Red Reading Hood might do for lunch. He thought, she looks tasty, a flavoursome treat, and maybe I'll read her book after I eat. The wolf had a plan, so he said with a smile, "But why don't you stay here and read for a while?" Red was quite tempted. Her book was so good. So she strayed from the path and she sat in the wood. 10 minutes, she said as she started to read, and off ran the wolf at lightning fast speed. Now books have all sorts of strange magical powers, and that afternoon Red was reading for hours. Meanwhile, at the library, what a barbarian! The wolf had tied up Mrs. Jones the librarian. He put on her glasses, her colourful smock, and said to himself, "Red is in for a shock." A few moments later, Red opened the door. "Come in," said the wolf with a wave of his paw. Little Red Reading Hood put her book down and looked at the wolf with a bit of a frown. "Are you quite well, Mrs. Jones?" she inquired. "You look a bit different today. Are you tired?" Red gasped, "What big eyes!" And the wolf, with a sneer, said, "Yes, all the better for reading, my dear." Red said, "Your ears are hairy as well." "And what," asked young Red, "is that terrible smell?" The wolf ripped his smock off and sprang from his seat. "Enough," cried the wolf. "Now I'm ready to eat." "You can't eat her up," the librarian blubbered, and with a loud heave, she flew out the cupboard. "That's such an obvious ending," she sighed. "We've heard it before. You at least could have tried. The wolf eats the girl up. Well, that's nothing new." "What?" the wolf puzzled. "But that's what wolves do. Wolves are the bad guys. It says in my book." Little Red Reading Hood gave him a look. She sat by the wolf and, despite her unease, said, "Stories can end any way that you please." "You don't like an ending?" Red Reading Hood said. "Then change it, arrange it again in your head. Just switch it and stitch it up some other way." The wolf nodded slowly and whispered, "Okay." A beanstalk grew from the crack in the floor. "Come on," Snow White shouted. "It's time to explore." Peter Pan noticed the fairy dust settle. "And now you can fly," said Hansel and Gretel. So back in her castle, deep under the sea, the mermaid invited the wolf round for tea. Aladdin jumped back and he gave a loud shout as his fairy godmother tumbled right out. Those stories seem a bit different. He thought for a moment, a book of my own, and this time the wolf won't end up all alone. He picked up a book about shoemaking elves, then started to chuckle and search through the shelves. "I found it," he shouted, and danced a few jigs. Then he borrowed a book about 3 little pigs. Little Red Riding Hood walked through the road, the moon shining down on her little red hood. She curled up that night with a book in her hands and dreamt of huge dragons and magical lands. For whilst leaving footpaths should never be done, straying from stories is all sorts of fun. Now, just like the child in my class, Little Red Riding Hood taught the wolf that you can make a story any way that you want it to end. So my challenge to you is, can you choose one of your favourite books, one of your favourite fairy tales, and can you rewrite it with an ending that you choose to do? Bye boys and girls, I hope everyone is staying safe and everyone stays well, and I'll see you all when we eventually get back to school.